Hi everyone, this video is about the poem Eden Rock. For this video you'll need coloured pens, a highlighter and of course your copy of the poem. If you don't have your anthology, there's one linked in the comments below, or you can email me to ask for one. Pause the video and get those three things. First of all, you need to turn to page 16 of your anthology. I'm going to tell you a simple summary of the poem. I want you to pause the video and write it down. So in Eden Rock, the speaker has a strong, precious yet painful memory of his parents. Now I want you to think about that summary and read the whole poem through. Now let's look at the poem in a bit more detail, stanza by stanza, starting with stanza one and the title. So I want you to highlight the title, Eden Rock. There are two things that are important about the title. Firstly, Eden Rock is a real place in Cornwall. So this memory, whether real or imagined, is linked to a real place which might have a special significance. Pause the video and write that down. Secondly, Eden is a place that's mentioned a lot in the Bible. It's literally paradise, but is synonymous with peace, perfection, and of course, heaven. So pause the video and write that down. So in the first stanza, we have this ambiguous memory where the parents are waiting for the speaker. The poet uses caesura, here, here, and here to draw attention to some specific details about the father. The details that he gives us include his age, he's only 25, and the thing that he's wearing, which is a suit of genuine Irish tweed. This suggests that the dad is stylish and elegant. Pause the video and write that down. However, we also get the sense that the dad might be quite a strict father. There's mention of the dog, the terrier, and the dog is described with the verb trembling at his feet. This might suggest that the dad is quite a stern man. Pause the video and write that down. So in the second stanza, we move focus to describing the mother's appearance. I want you to look at the first half of the stanza and I want you to think, what do we learn about the mother from that first half of the stanza? So you might have spotted the list of things which show that she's youthful and elegant. She's 23, she's dressed in a sprig, that's a fitted or flowery dress, which is drawn at the waist, and she has a ribbon in her straw hat. In the second half of the stanza though, we get the impression that the mum is even more than glamorous and beautiful, that there's something quite special about her. And the poet Charles Causley shows us that through something called celestial imagery. Now, celestial imagery is the imagery of heaven or angels. Have a look at the second half of the stanza and think, are there any words or phrases that remind you of heaven or angels? You might have picked out the mum's hair, which is the colour of wheat. Literally, that just means she's blonde, but symbolically or metaphorically, it might suggest she has this angelic quality about her, that she's golden in some way. That's emphasised by the fact that her hair takes on the light. So the celestial imagery suggests the mother is angelic, nurturing, and timeless. Pause the video and write that down. So the second stanza describes the mother's appearance. The third stanza describes her actions, what she's doing in the memory. There's a list of things that shows she's a nurturing, caring mother, doing her best to take care of her family on this picnic. At the end of the stanza, we've got this image of 3 plates that she's laying out and 3 tin cups. Now, literally, that just means she's laying out things for them to use on the picnic. But the image of the 3 plates could symbolize the unity of the 3 family members, their togetherness. You might notice in this stanza that the words straight and out and screw and blue sound similar. They're what we would call a half rhyme. That's where some of the sounds in the word rhyme with another, not necessarily the whole thing. So in straight and out, the str and the ow signs don't rhyme, but the t and t at the end of the word do rhyme. This half rhyme, which is here in this stanza and in all of the others, creates this kind of steady pace, which reflects the steady, calm support of the parents in the speaker's life. Pause the video and write that down. Now, in the next stanza, there's something of a shift in tone. And this happy memory, whether real or imagined, becomes disturbed. And that disturbance emphasizes the division between the parent and the child. Maybe they're separated by life and death. Maybe they're separated by time or location, but either way, there's definitely a separation that happens at this point in the poem. So we get this first line, the sun whitens as if lit by 3 suns. Now that image literally is the sky changing from blue to white, but that emphasizes a feeling of disturbance to their lives or to this memory. And in this moment in the poem, we are told by Charles Causley that there's a stream between where the mum and dad are and where the speaker is stood. And that image of the stream is symbolic of some kind of barrier. That could be the death of the parents or some kind of journey. So the speaker growing older and growing apart from his parents. Either way, that stream is important. So pause the video and write that down. Now the next stanza, you'll notice, leads into or is led into by the previous stanza. So we've got this image of the parents on the other side of the stream. And in the next stanza, we move on to the detail that the parents are trying to call the speaker across the stream. You'll notice that this line, which describes the parents just calling him from the other bank, beckoning him, kind of flows into the next stanza. Have a think and see if you can remember what that device is called, where one line flows into the next. If you said enjambment, then you're correct. And that enjambment, where one line is flowing into the next, one stanza is flowing into the next, reveals that disconnect between the speaker and his parents. Literally, they're apart, but emotionally, they're still connected because the parents are trying to call him over. And that image of the parents calling him suggests this real desire for them to remain close, for them to remain this unified family, even if they're apart physically, whether that's because the parents have died or whether that's because time has passed since this happy memory. And then by the end of the poem, we get this very ambiguous reflection on that feeling of disconnection. The last line of the poem, the speaker says, "I had not thought that it would be like this." It's a very ambiguous line. There's a couple of things that we could say about it. First of all, you'll see that this is just one line by itself, not next to any other stanzas in the poem. We call this a stand-alone line. And you'll see on your page in the anthology that looks really different to the rest of the poem. The rest of the poem is organized in stanzas of 4 lines or quatrains. And that emphasizes this line, the fact that this one's all by itself, and this is the speaker reflecting, "I had not thought it would be like this," emphasizes his isolation. He's either unwilling or unable to connect with his parents. Maybe he's grown up and grown away from them. Maybe they've died and he's no longer able to connect with them in the same way he is at the start of the poem in that memory of the picnic. And either way, that ambiguous ending, we're not exactly sure what it means, but we could say it shows a regret at him having lost closeness with his parents, or a bit of an emptiness in that he can't capture that close, happy feeling he had at the start of the poem. So pause the video and write those two things down. So we've looked at the poem stanza by stanza, and we've made a note of some key meanings and methods. But you might be thinking, which poems in the anthology could I compare Eden Rock to? So just take a moment to think in your head, which poems go well with Eden Rock? We need poems where there's a strong memory. We perhaps need poems where there's a sense of admiration for a family member. Have a think which poems include those themes. So you might have thought of Climbing My Grandfather, because both Climbing My Grandfather and Eden Rock have speakers who have powerful memories of someone they love, but also quite painful memories. Or you might have thought of Before You Were Mine, because in that poem, the speaker, this time a woman, is describing her mother, who admires her mother despite the distance between them. And again, that distance could be time and growing up, or that could be the distance of death, a family member who's passed on and is no longer with us. If you can think of any other poems that you would link to, or have any questions about which poems would be suitable to link with Eden Rock, please send me an email. I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, send me an email, and I look forward to seeing your annotations.